So welcome. In this chapter, we would talk about the drainage system in India. Now, this is a very interesting topic. Before beginning with the individual drainage systems, let's talk about some of the most commonly heard terms when we talk about rivers, drainage. So there are few terms which you are always confused with. Let's say watershed, and then you have a river basin. So when I say watershed, it is a kind of boundary that separates one drainage basin with the another drainage basin, and this is a kind of watershed. Now with this watershed, what you have is you have small rivers that are separated. However, when I talk about catchment area, it's usually a larger region that we consider. So catchment area talks about bigger rivers, the areas drained by the bigger rivers. When I talk about smaller rivers, we usually focus with watersheds, where you have a boundary that separates two small streams, that is sea. Again, one very important term is the perennial river and the ephemeral river. What is the difference between the two? Perennial, which flows throughout the year. Mainly when we say you have glaciers melting, those would be an example of perennial rivers. Ephemeral are those which are carrying water during the rainy season, but in the other seasons they turn out dry. So those are ephemeral rivers. Now, as I said, with the water that flows into a river, a nala, or any channel, you call it as a drainage. When you have a network of such rivers flowing in, we call it as a drainage system. And finally, a drainage basin, which covers or the area which is drained by a river and its tributary, is the drainage basin. Now, once you have one river that is there and the other river basin that is there, what we try to understand is a water divide. So water divide is a region between the two rivers that are flowing. Also, when the river flows, it carries water with it. Now this amount of water that it carries varies. So it varies from season to season. Definitely during the rainy months, monsoon months, you would have a lot of water that it would carry, but during the dry months, it would have comparatively less water. So there is seasonal variations that are seen. But the northern rivers, mostly when we talk about India, in the northern you have the rivers which are fed by glaciers, and therefore they are more or less perennial in nature. However, the southern rivers that we see are ephemeral in nature because they are monsoon laden. Now, how do we measure the amount of water that flows in? This amount of water that flows in is measured as discharge. So, discharge is the amount of water that flows over the time, and this is measured as cusics and cumics. So, cusics is the cubic feet per second of the water that is carried, and cubic is the cubic meters per second of the water that is carried. Let's talk about some case specific examples. So let's focus on Ganga River. Now Ganga River, during the months of January to July, it's usually at its minimum level. However, in August and September, it's at its peak level. And then you have a sizable flow of water that is seen by two agents. One is the glacier melting and other is the monsoon. So because of that, you have August and September as the months where you have very high amount of water that flows in to the system in Ganga. Also, if we talk about the mean discharge in Ganga, it's around 55,000 cusics in the regions of Farakka, but the minimum is only 1,300 cusics. So there is a huge variation in the amount of water that it carries. Similarly, the Narmada River, it has the lowest flow from January to July. The flow starts to rise during the month of August, and the highest peak levels are registered at Garudeshwar, which has the maximum level of water flow in Narmada. Similarly, if we talk about Godavari, so the flow again starts to decline by the month of October here. If we talk about Godavari, you have minimum discharge during the month of May, you have maximum during the period of July and August, and after August there is a sharp decline that is seen in the months of November and October. However, the region where you have the highest levels of water in Godavari that is being seen is the Polavaram, which has the highest amount of water that it carries. Now, this water, which is obtained from river, is used for various purposes. You have the water that comes in suitable for agriculture, industry, household activities. But if this water gets polluted, now how does it gets polluted? It could be due to industrial discharge, agricultural waste flowing in, household sanitation going in, the usability comes up to a issue. So what happens is there are issues linked to pollution of water. You have a lot of silt that comes into the water when you have erosion at the hills that are seen. Similarly, the flow of water is sometimes uneven. So when you have floods coming in, a lot of water is wasted. On the other months, you have droughts where you have acute shortage and crisis of water. So management of water during those months again become important. You have interstate disputes and then international disputes where you have disputes between two nations that are seen, or two states that are seen. So Kaveri River within India, beyond India, if we talk about Indus, Brahmaputra, you have disputes between India and Pakistan for Indus, India and China for Brahmaputra. So that's where you have the disputes that are also seen. Now, you have a kind of creation of action plan that is important. So Namami Ganga is one of the projects that talks about conservation and rejuvenation of Ganga River. So Ganga action plan, one of the major aspects that we talk about. Similarly, you have lots of development that is seen across other rivers. So checking whether you have a polluted industry at its shoreline, or you have cremation of bodies that occurs, issues of bathing and washing of clothes that occurs. Those are some of the most popular reasons that we talk about. The next is the types of drainage that we see. Now, types of drainage we have already covered in a separate lecture, but just to give you an overview again here, you have various patterns. Let's say dendritic drainage, where you have a tree-like drainage system. Usually the rivers of northern plains of India have a dendritic system. So you have one river coming in and then you have a kind of tree-like structure that moves on. So that's dendritic. Radial means from the top of the hill, you have water that flows in all direction. So from the hilltop, you have water flowing in all direction, which is known as radial. Amarkantak is a very good example. On the other hand, you have centripetal, where water from all sources accumulates in a lake body. So all different sources entering into the lake body, and that's where you have the centripetal drainage. Similarly, you have trellis drainage. So trellis drainage is usually seen where you have water patterns that join up, or the rivers that join up at right angles. So when you have rivers meeting at right angle, you have trellis pattern that is seen. The next important thing that we understand is the drainage system in India. Now in India, we can demarcate the drainage system as either the Arabian Sea drainage or the Bay of Bengal drainage. Now if I say Arabian Sea versus Bay of Bengal, I would say 77% of the drainage falls in the Bay of Bengal, only 23% falls in Arabian Sea. The rivers draining into Arabian Sea are Narmada, Mahi, Tapti, Periyar. However, in the regions of Bay of Bengal, you have rivers like Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri. So all those rivers, Ganga from the north, Brahmaputra, all those flow into Bay of Bengal. So that is one demarcation. Now how they are demarcated? They are demarcated by the hills. So it could be the Delhi hills, then it could be Aravali's, it could be Sahyadris. So all of those are the hilly ranges that divide the rivers flowing into the Arabian Sea and the rivers flowing into Bay of Bengal. The next demarcation is the Himalayan rivers, that's the rivers of North India and the rivers of South India, broadly we can say. So Himalayan drainage and the peninsular drainage. Now in the Himalayan drainage, the rivers are perennial. They are throughout the year fed by the glaciers. So you have melting of the glaciers and water flowing into the rivers throughout the year. Also, you have an antecedent and a consequent drainage system that is seen in the Himalayan rivers, in contrast to a peninsular rivers where you have mainly the superimposed drainage system. Now antecedent and superimposed we have covered in a separate lecture. You can follow the links in the description. The next is the flow of river. Now in the north you have longer flow of river that is seen, a lot of meandering that is seen, in contrast to the southern rivers or the peninsular rivers where the course of movement is short and it's well adjusted across the valleys that is seen. There is comparatively less meandering of the rivers that is seen. In the north, as the river is long, definitely the basin area would be long. So larger basin, more youthful activity and more active levels of rivers are seen in the north. Now in the north, let's say you have Ganga. Now Ganga, you have tributaries like Yamuna, Son, then you have Gandak. So all those tributaries join with the main Ganga. Now, since there are one main river and other subordinate rivers joining in, we understand watershed. So watershed can be classified under three heads: macro, meso and micro. Macro is the most biggest one, where you have an area of 20,000 square kilometers or more. Meso from 2,000 to 20,000, and less than 2,000 is what is micro regions. So micro talks about the region where you have very less rainfall, small accumulation of water that is seen through the rivers. Meso watershed is a watershed of, let's say, the Kalindi River, Periyar River, where you have a meso watershed that is seen, and macro where you have the 14 major rivers that we classify: Ganga, Brahmaputra, Krishna, Tapi, Narmada, Mahi. So those are the major rivers with macro watershed. So that's a very basic classification. And then, as we already talked about the Namami Ganga, that's one of the major missions since 2014, where we talk about the treatment of the wastewater flowing into the Ganga River, talking about cleaning of the riverfront area, infrastructural development, maintaining afforestation, people's awareness. So those are some of the key aspects that we look into for conservation and rejuvenation of Ganga River, and similarly would be followed with other rivers as well later on. Now the next part that we move on to is a very important part, and that is the major rivers of the Himalayan drainage system and the peninsular drainage system. Here you would have definitely a lot to remember and a lot to memorize. So coming on to the two types of drainage system, one is the Himalayan drainage system, the other is the peninsular drainage system. Let's first focus on the Himalayan drainage system. Himalayan drainage system encompasses three major rivers, and those are Indus, Ganga and Brahmaputra. All of these three rivers are perennial in nature. That means they have water throughout the year coming from glaciers. And then you have most of the rivers among these three and their tributaries which are very active during their youth stage. That means they have a kind of belly shaped formation with rapids, a lot of waterfalls that are seen. But towards the maturity phase or the old age phase, we can see you have the floodplains that are seen or the braided channels that are seen. Initially, you have shivaliks that were running during the Miocene period, and during this period, be it from Punjab to the region of Assam, you had whole of the longitudinal accent, the extent that could be seen was made up mainly of sand, clay, boulders and material that was one of the major formations or one of the major reasons for the formation of the antecedent river basins that were seen. And during that time you had Indo-Brahma River that was dividing into three main channels. Those was, the first was the Indus River and the tributaries going towards the west, Ganga and the Himalayan centers, and then you had Brahmaputra, mainly pertaining to the regions of Assam and the Himalayan tributaries that originated during the upheaval of the Pleistocene era. And during that time, you had mainly the upliftment of the Potwar Plateau that was seen, which was also known as Delhi Ridge during that time. Similarly, during the mid of Pleistocene period, there was a kind of downthirst of the Malda Gap that was seen, and this downthirst of the Malda Gap, what ultimately it led to was a gap that was created between the Meghalaya Plateau and the Rajmahal Hills, and this was which was one of the major reasons that diverted the path of Ganga and Brahmaputra. And because of this gap, you had the Ganga Brahmaputra that was seen flowing towards the Bay of Bengal. So, under the Himalayan drainage system, let's talk about the very first river and its tributaries, that is Indus River. Indus has one of the largest areas in the world with nearly more than 11 lakh square kilometers of area, and this was named as Sindhu during the previous time from the name of Sindh. It originated from the glaciers near Tibet in the Kailash mountain range, and then you had the flow of the river that was seen between the Ladakh and the Zanskar range, and between the Ladakh and the Zanskar range, this Indus River flowed through the region of Ladakh and Balochistan. Later on, it enters into the territory of Pakistan at Chilas, and this is the region which lies in the Dardistan region of Pakistan. You have numerous tributaries like Shiog, Gilgit, Zanskar, Nubra that are part of Indus, and you have the complete list here. Finally, at the region of Attock in the territories of Pakistan, you have the river that meets its right bank river, and the right bank rivers are mainly the Kurram, Gomal, Vibhova, Sangha, which originates in the region of Suleiman ranges. So you have the right bank rivers that merge here, and finally this river flows as Panchnath, which is a composition of 5 rivers as it is called as the Jhelum, Chenab, Indus, Ravi and Satluj. So those 5 are the major rivers that form the Indus and are one of the major tributaries that we would understand today. Finally, it discharged into the region of Bay of Bengal east of the Karachi. So what are the 5 tributaries? The first is Jhelum. Jhelum originates at Verinag, close to the Pir Panjal region and in the region of Kashmir Valley. So the river flows through Srinagar and Vular Lake and finally drains into the Indus River. It meets the Chenab joins the Indus at Jhang in Pakistan area. Then you have next, which is the Chenab. Chenab, as the name suggests, comes in from the 2 rivers, which is Chandra and Bhaga river. So Chandra Bhaga together is the 2 rivers, the Chandra and the Bhaga river joins at Tandi in Himachal Pradesh and then forms the Chandrabhaga river. It is one of the largest tributaries of Indus River that is seen, and before entering into Pakistan, it has a run of nearly more than 1,000 kilometers. The next is Ravi. Ravi river originates to the west of Rohtang Pass in Kullu Hills, and then you have the flow through the Chamba Valley that is seen. It enters Pakistan and joins near the Sarai Sindhu. So it joins Chenab. So Ravi joins Chenab near the Sarai Sindhu area, and then it drains most of the regions of Pir Panjal and Dhauladar ranges. Next to Ravi, you have Byas. Byas originates at Byas Kund at Rohtang. So both closer to Rohtang. One is towards the west of Rohtang Pass. The next is the Byas is from the Byas Kund at Rohtang, and this is where you have the flow that is seen through the Kullu Valley, mainly in the regions of Khati and Largi in the Dhauladar range, where you have deep gorge formations that are seen. Finally, Byas meets with the Satluj river at the Harikund. The next is the Satluj. Now, Satluj is important because it originates in the region of Tibet, the Rakastal region, and for a very long duration, it flows parallel to the Indus River and finally joins the Indus River. So it goes through the Shiplika Pass, and for nearly 400 kilometers, it's running parallel to the Indus River. This is one of the major rivers that is seen, where you have the Byas that merges into it, and one of the major gorge that is formed at the Satluj River is at Rupar. So again, a very important river, and this is one of the rivers based on which you have the whole project of Bhakra Nagal. So one of the major HEP projects in India that is seen. The next important one is the Ganga River. Ganga, as the name comes, is from the Gangotri Glacier. Gangotri Glacier, located near Gaumukh in the Uttarkashi district, is the origin for the Ganga River. Now, this Ganga River is the amalgamation of two rivers, which is Bhagirathi and Alaknanda River. At Dev Prayag, you have the merger of Bhagirathi and Alaknanda that is seen. Now, Alaknanda is one of the rivers that originates at Satopant Glacier, near or close to the regions of Badrinath. And then you have the two rivers, which is the Dholi River and the Vishnu Ganga River. Together, the Dholi River and the Vishnu Ganga River meet to form the Alaknanda. So you have the Dholi and the Vishnu Ganga forming Alaknanda, and this Alaknanda merges with Bhagirathi to form the Ganga River, which moves further to the regions of Haridwar, crossing Uttar Pradesh, then Bihar, and then finally draining into the regions of West Bengal. So it is the Alaknanda that joins with another major rivers. Those are the Pindar, which joins at Karnprayag, and the Mandakini, which joins or meets at the Rudraprayag. And then you have the flow of Alaknanda that merges with Bhagirathi. So you have Karnaprayag, where you have the Pindar River that joins. You have Mandakini or Kali Ganga, which joins at Rudraprayag, and finally at Dev Prayag you have Bhagirathi and Alaknanda that meets and empties ultimately into Bay of Bengal, where you have the merger of Ganga and Brahmaputra as the Sundarban deltas in the Sagar Island. So that is the Ganga River. So tributaries of Ganga. Now Ganga, you have the right bank and the left bank tributaries. What is the best way to remember it? When I say left bank tributary, if you are going in the direction of the river, if you are following the same direction, to your left would be the left bank tributaries, to your right would be the right bank tributaries. So two major right bank tributaries, you have Yamuna and Son, and then rest of all are the left bank tributaries. Among the left bank, sometimes the order is asked. So you have Ram Ganga, that is the first one. Then you have Gomti, Ghagar, Gandak. Then so all three G's, and then finally you have Mahananda that originates from the Darjeeling Hills and joins the Ganga towards the end. So Mahananda is the last river from the left bank that joins Ganga. Very, very important question. Now coming on to each of these rivers one by one. First, talk about the right bank river. So you have Son. Son originates in the region of Amarkantak. It has a series of waterfall before joining into the Ganga River closer to Patna. So it merges closer to Araha region of Patna. The next is Yamuna. Yamuna is again one of the westmost rivers originating from Yamunotri glaciers, merges with Ganga at Prayag, which is now known as Allahabad. You have again tributaries of Yamuna that are seen. So Yamuna, again you have the right bank tributaries and the left bank tributaries. So right bank and left bank tributaries. Under the right bank tributaries you have Chambal, Sindh, Betwa and Kain as the major rivers that are seen. When we talk about the left bank tributaries, you have Hindan, Rind, Sengar and Varun as the tributaries. Now talking about Chambal, which is one of the major tributaries of Yamuna, which is again a tributary of Ganga. So under this Chambal, it originates in the Deccan Plateau area, mainly the Moh area of Madhya Pradesh. It moves from the Gandhi Sagar Dam, the Kota area, going upwards towards Bundi, Savai Madhopur, Dholpur, and finally merging into the region of Yamuna. And in the whole of the path, you have numerous Chambal ravines that are seen. Coming on to the other rivers originating on the left bank. So you have Gandak as one of the major rivers, as we said. Now Gandak comprises of two rivers, Kali Gandak and Trishul Gandak. Both of those originate in the Himalayan region, in the region of Nepal, and crosses the region of Dhaulagiri near the region of Mount Everest, and finally Crossing the region of Nepal, they enter the Champaran area of Bihar, where they merge with Ganga River. So at this point where they merge with the Ganga River, it's mainly the Chhapra area where you have Ganga River that merges, and the Gandak River merges at Sonpur. So Chhapra, where you have the Ganga River that merges, and Gandak River merges at Sonpur. So both of those rivers, the left bank tributaries of Ganga, are important. Now this Ganga River originates in the region of Tibet. So you have the Mapchochong glacier where it originates. Numerous tributaries are there for Ganga River as well. Tila, Seti and Beri are the three major rivers where you have the gorges that could be seen. Finally, at the region of Shishpani, and this is the area where you have Sharda River, which is also known as the Kali Ganga, which merges into the Ganga River. So Ganga River, again one of the major rivers. So you have Gandak River as one of the major rivers, then you have Ganga River as one of the major rivers, and this Ganga, you have the tributary which is Sarda, or also known as the Saryu River. Saryu River originates from again the Nepal Himalaya in the Milam region, and it is also known as Gauri Ganga during that time. Finally crosses the Indo-Nepal border at Kali, which is also known as Chuk, and joins the Ganga River. The next is Kosi River. Kosi River is also known as the Sorrow of Bihar, and Damodar, which is known as the Sorrow of Bengal. So finally you have the Damodar that joins here. Damodar is originating from the Chota Nagpur plateau, and you have a rift valley through which this Damodar River flows. A lot of mining is seen along the Damodar, and then you have the merger with the Ganga River that is seen. Similar to that, you have Kosi River. Kosi River, as we said, originates from the north. You have Arun stream that rises, and from this Arun you have the Kosi stream. So flows through the region of Nepal Himalayas, known as the Son Kosi from the west and Tamur Kosi from the east. And finally you have river Arun that meets it, where you have the Sapt Kosi, or the 7 rivers that unite here. Then you have the Ram Ganga. Ram Ganga is one of the major rivers. As I said, it's one of the first left bank tributaries, first major left bank tributary that is seen. And this originates in the region of Garhwal. You have a southwest direction through which it enters, crosses the regions of Shivalik, and joins Ganga near the area of Kannauj. And Damodar, as we have already explained, is the Sorrow of Bengal. And finally Mahananda, which is the last left bank tributary of Ganga, a very very important question, and it merges somewhere in the region of West Bengal. So those are some of the major tributary systems under Ganga River. Coming on to the Brahmaputra. Brahmaputra is known as one of the largest rivers of the world. The Chemayungdung glacier in the Kailash area of Mansarovar is the origin point. The whole of the river flows as the Dihang River, and it is also known as the Tsangpo during that time. This Tsangpo word in Tibet means purifier. So you have Rango Tsangpo, which merges as a right bank tributary in the region of Tibet, finally entering near the Sadia region in the Arunachal Pradesh, where it takes a sudden turn, and here you have numerous rivers that is formed. So here it is named as Dihang River. The rivers which join are Dibang, Lohit, you have Disang, Diku and Dhansari. So most of the rivers is starting with D, so that's how you can remember it, except the Lohit River. And these are the rivers that join the Brahmaputra system towards the sides of the left bank. Okay, so these are the left bank tributaries. Then you do have the right bank tributaries. Under the right bank tributaries, the major one are Subansari, Kameng, then you have Mansa and Tista, and further Tista, a tributary is there which is known as Rangit. Rangit originates in the region of Sikkim. So again, very very important. Now talking about some of these major ones, you have Subansari. Subansari originates in the region of Tibet. It is again an antecedent river. So as we have seen, most of the Himalayan drainage system is based on antecedent river patterns. Now, talking about the left bank and the right bank tributaries, following the course. If it's towards the left, we call it as the left bank tributaries. If it's towards the right, we call it the right bank tributaries. So, Dibang, Disang, Diku and Dhansari are some of the major left bank tributaries. And finally, this Brahmaputra enters into the region of Bangladesh, where it is known as Dhubri. It enters near Dhubri, and finally it joins the main river, and in the region of Bangladesh it is known as Jamuna. It merges with the river Padma and falls into the Bay of Bengal. So it's also known as the Jamuna Padma or the Ganga Brahmaputra as a well-known delta. And finally you have a lot of floodplain deposits that are seen. So this is about the Himalayan drainage system. Coming on to the peninsular drainage system. Peninsular drainage system is much more older to the Himalayan drainage system. It is shallow valleys that are seen. The rivers are at a higher maturity stage. You have non-perennial rivers that are seen, and most of the peninsular rivers flows from west to east, except two major rivers, Narmada and Tapti, which flows from east to west. So except Narmada and Tapti, most of the rivers flow from west to east. Now why is it so? There are three simple explanations for it. The first is the tilting of the peninsular block towards the east. So because there is a tilt towards the southeast, there is a natural flow of the rivers towards the east, and therefore you have Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri draining into the Bay of Bengal towards the east. The next is the subsidence of the western flank that was seen, and that is because of the submergence during the tertiary period. And because of this submergence, there was a disturbance in the symmetry that was seen for the peninsular India, and therefore a shift in the drainage pattern. The third important point is the upheaval of the Himalayas, and that upheaval of the Himalayas led to fault creations, and these were the faults through which the present Narmada and Tapti flows towards the west, and that's one of the another explanations for understanding the peninsular drainage. So three major explanations for why most of the rivers drain towards Bay of Bengal, and then why you have Narmada and Tapti draining towards the western areas. Now coming on to the major peninsular rivers. Let's talk about mainly the east draining rivers first. So you have the first and the topmost one, which is Mahanadi. Mahanadi originates in the region of Chhattisgarh, flows through the region of Odisha, and finally drains into the Bay of Bengal. Most of the region is being dissipated in the areas of Chhattisgarh, and nearly equivalent proportions seen in Odisha. So 53% in Chhattisgarh, 47% around in Odisha that is seen. The next important river here we have is Godavari. Now Godavari is one of the largest peninsular rivers. It's also known as Dakshin Ganga and is considered as one of the male rivers that is there. Originates in the region of Nasik in Maharashtra, and from Maharashtra it crosses the region of Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, and finally Andhra Pradesh. Most of this river drains through Maharashtra. So nearly 50% of Godavari drains through Maharashtra. In the lower areas of Godavari, you have Polavaram, where you have heavy flood situation that could be seen, and numerous gorge situations that are seen. And finally you have the delta formations after the river splits into several branches closer to Rajamundry area. In the Godavari you have Penganga, Venganga as some of the major tributaries that are seen. The next important river is Krishna River. Now, Krishna is the second largest east flowing river. Konyan, Tungabhadra and Bhima are the major tributaries for the Krishna River, and most of the Krishna passes through the region of Karnataka. So, maximum proportion of Krishna River is seen in the state of Karnataka. The next is Kaveri. Now, Kaveri dispute has been in news since long. So, you have three states where there is a constant dispute, and that's the Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and Kerala region. However, most of the proportions are seen with Tamil Nadu. Most of the waters are seen with Tamil Nadu, then with Karnataka, and very little with Kerala. The major rivers are Amravati, Kabini and Bhavani rivers. And during the northeast monsoon, you have the lower regime of the Kaveri River, which shows a lot of water, and during the southwest monsoon, it's the upper regime. So throughout the year, we can say you have water availability in the Kaveri, and this has been one of the major rivers under dispute. The next is Narmada River, where you have the issue of Sardar Sarovar Dam. It originates in the region of Amarkantak and flows westward. So we have already understood why these rivers are flowing towards the west. And between the region of Satpura and Vindhyas, you have the flow of Narmada that is seen. And below the Satpura, have the Tapti River that flows. From this, you have the Dhauladhar mountain or the Dhauladhar falls that are seen, Dhuadhar falls that are seen, and Dhuadhar falls near Jabalpur are one of the major falls that mark the Narmada River. And then you have the Sardar Sarovar Dam that is again in use. Finally, it merges Arabian Sea south of the region of Bharuch. South Satpura, we have Tapti River, and this Tapti River originates mainly in the regions of Madhya Pradesh at the Betul area, and then flows parallel more or less to the Narmada River. Most of the proportion of Tapti is seen in the region of Maharashtra, with little in Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat. Now, under the west flowing rivers, we do have some non-perennial rivers like Luni River in Rajasthan, and this originates in two branches, one of which is Saraswati. Now, the history of Saraswati has been ambiguous over the years. We have numerous bases under which the discovery of Saraswati is yet to be embarked. And then you have Sabarmati. Both of these, Sabarmati and Saraswati, joined at Govindgarh, and from there you have the Luni River that flows in. It is one of the rivers that flows through the Aravali and finally region of Telwada and joining into the run of Kutch into the south. So it's a kind of ephemeral region that is river that is seen. Now, besides these major rivers in the south, there are ample of smaller rivers. The region of Goa is known for Mandvi and Zori rivers, which is one of the mainstay of the economy in Goa. Similarly, in the regions of Gujarat, you have Shatrunjay, Bhadra and Dhadar as some of the major rivers. In the region of Maharashtra, Vetarna is one of the rivers which originates closer to Nasik. Similarly, in the regions of Karnataka, you have Kali Nadi, Bedati, Sharavati as some of the major rivers. And finally, in Kerala, you have numerous rivers where you have backwaters that are seen. So, Ponani or Bharatpuza, then you have Periyar and Pamba are some of the major rivers. Pamba falls into the Vimnad Lake. Similarly, you have a lot of rivers which are also draining towards the east. So these were the rivers that were smaller rivers that were draining towards the west. Now going on to the east, you have the Subranekha, Vegai, Palar, Pennar, you have the Brahmani and the Baitarni as some of the major rivers which drain towards the east or the Bay of Bengal, but these are smaller rivers in proportion to the other rivers that we have discussed. So those are some of the major rivers that we focus on in the terms of the Himalayan river systems and the peninsular river systems. Knowing the tributaries, the left bank tributaries and the right bank tributaries is important. Similarly, the origin and the merger of the two rivers is another important point that you need to know. So, the origin points for Alaknanda, Bhagirathi, the mergers for Alaknanda, Bhagirathi, and the origin points, the various glaciers for each of the rivers of Alaknanda and Bhagirathi are very, very important. Similarly, under the Brahmaputra, you have the name that changes. So, in the region of Bangladesh, it is known as Jamuna. So, that's again very, very important. Tsangpo in the regions of Tibet, and then you have the Dihang, which flows through the region of Assam. So there are different names and different categories for the same river that is also seen, which is again very, very important. The merger of the rivers, as I already said, and the early youth stages and the oldest stages of these rivers. So this is a very, very basic fundamental class on the river system or the drainage system of India. We will be covering many more topics under Indian geography. So stay tuned. Have a wonderful day ahead.